Hey there, so I think it's about time I gave you an update as to where I am on the robots. So, here's how we're going. So, I've got four things going at once at the minute. I've got Predator, I've got Foxxix Mark III, Foxxix Mark IV, and Foxxix Featherweight. So, it's where to start. Let's start with Predator. So, as you saw in its melee on the Science Channel, it had a bit of damage already, and it stopped when it was hit pretty fucking hard by Valkyrie. All that hit did was disconnect two XT150 male and female connectors, which just so happened to be the negative line that fed the entire power system. And it just so happens to be the only one that we hadn't wrapped in duct tape. Proving the adage that if it can go wrong, it will go wrong, particularly if it's one of my robots. But if you've seen the fight, you probably noticed there was already some damage on the robot, which was caused by our first fight against Rotator. And contrary to belief, it did work in that fight. It didn't work entirely as anticipated. It didn't work particularly well, but it drove into the arena, and if it had all three wheels that got chopped off attached, it probably would have driven out of the arena too. But Rotator did one hell of a number. Where's that wheel? Rotator basically ate us for breakfast. I wholeheartedly underestimated how powerful it was. So it has a hole in his wheel, and it's buckled and it's twisted, and that's just so I don't lose the gear. Otherwise that wheel is trash. So he did that to three wheels, and usually my welding is top notch, because I've been hit by people like Last Rights and Mr. Speed Squared, and hit by flippers and stuff, and generally doesn't fall apart, with the exception of that one time where I just tack welded everything together because I didn't have time to actually weld it together. This was fully welded, but it along these parts here. But he ripped off the entire side panel on the wheels, on three of them. And he didn't manage to get the last one off, which is, I guess, good for me. So, yeah, he did a real number on the sides and took out the wheels. We plugged the link in when we got back to the pits, and everything still works. So it was literally just a case of re-welding those back on and going again. So we did. The reason it didn't work particularly well, or as well as anticipated, was that we'd left something in one of the VESC programming modes, which meant it went into safety shutdown every time it got hit, which for a BattleBot is not great because it gets hit on a regular basis, particularly when you fight somebody like Rotator. So it actually came away from BattleBots fully working, ready to go. And well, I say that, it was sharing parts with Foxxix. So it actually had all of the parts from that had gone into it from Foxxix stripped straight back out. And in about a 2-hour window, we had to strip Predator's drive out, and wiring loom out, and batteries and controllers out, and install them into Foxxix so that it could go into the back of Fuzzy's truck and he could take it to Robogames for me. So thank you, Fuzzy. I know I've said thank you, but thank you. So since we've come back and I've got Predator back in the workshop, I've decided to go back to programming the controllers properly and putting it back together. And yeah, so I've rebuilt the gearboxes on it because they were the ones that were in Foxxix. Well, I'll come to that in a minute. And yeah, so I've rebuilt it. It works. I've tested the self-righting. Self-righting works. Drive motors will work. The reason it's not being run is because I'm missing some steel to make the hubs for the wheels. They're the bits that hold the bearings in, because I run dead shafts. Dead shaft is a shaft that doesn't spin, if you aren't aware. So I have a gear on the wheel, as you've seen, and I have another gear off the end of the gearbox, which drives that gear, which gives me a final reduction. The shaft itself stays still, and there's bearings in the wheel. So the bearings sit into a piece of metal, which is basically like a tube that sits in the wheel, and I've run out. So I've ordered some more, but that's not due until mid-September, which sucks. So, yeah. But as soon as I've got that, I can chop it up, deburr it, machine it a little bit, and pop bearings in, pop them into the wheels, pop the wheels onto Predator, and off it will go. Next job is Foxic. So Foxic came out of RoboGames perfectly fine. The issues that I've had with Foxic, man, they have been almost limitless. I've been doing lots of drive setup testing on it. One thing I have done for definite is I have changed from running a simple brushed motor setup with 4 amp flows, 1 for each wheel, to a more complicated brushless setup with an additional stage on the gearbox and brushless controllers. The controllers have been a bit of a pain in the ass, as anybody who runs brushless will tell you. So it was running the VESC 4 controller perfectly fine. Ellis used it in Magnetar, works great for him and in Neon. Pretty low on the current side of things. So when I went to Russia last year, it was the very first time that I'd run brushless in Foxic, and it was really bodged together because half of the gearbox parts didn't arrive in time. So poor Foxic was running a ridiculous gear ratio, I think 5-to-1 or something, but it worked, and it did really well. It won a few fights out there, which is really super. So I came back and I decided it needs this extra gearbox so I can run them at full revs and reprogram the motors and stuff, and ever since then it didn't really do what I wanted it to do. And I spent all of December, November, December, and a good portion of January fighting with my VESC controllers in Foxic, to the point I actually got it working, and I had it driving around. It was turning left, it was turning right, going forwards and backwards, and it was doing everything I wanted it to do, but it just wasn't doing it as well as I wanted it to do it. So the idea was that we were going to switch over to a more robust controller, and then BattleBots happened, and all of the money that I was going to spend on putting nice controllers into Foxic went into making a brand new robot that they asked for, rather than taking Foxic, which is what I wanted to do. We were going to rebrand Foxic, and we were going to take it to to BattleBots under a different name. Didn't work out that way. So while we were at BattleBots, I had to buy new controllers, and I had to buy the brushless Rage Bridge, and they were blowing up left, right, and centre. Everybody was blowing them up, and I put 5 into Predator. They're now in Foxic, and I blew 1 up in a fight because a wheel got jammed, and it took out the controller because it was trying to drive a wheel that wouldn't work. So it was a bit of a pain in the butt, but I didn't blow 1 just driving around like everybody else seemed to do. So I've been really pleased with them. I know they're not perfect, and I know they're not the long-term solution, but I am pretty pleased with them. I do quite like them. I think they're decent controllers. Well done, Charles. They're superb. So what I'm doing with Foxic right now is I am basically prepping the setup for the brushless drive and prepping the setup for the weapon, which is now also brushless and is also on a massive 330-to-1 gearbox, which I've made myself. Worked great, absolutely great. Actually don't have any complaints about the weapon system for the first time in a very long time, which is great. Foxic is working really good. I would happily put it put the batteries in and go and fight it tomorrow, happily. But it hasn't really come to the end of its life as a fighting robot, but it kind of has. I'm kind of patching it to make do right now. I'm not really running it in its best, to its full potential. So I think the thing to do with this chassis with Foxic Mark III is to use it as a test bed to get things right for Foxic Mark IV, which is on its way. So Foxic Mark IV is what I'm calling Billet Boy currently, because it is 4 pieces of metal. It's the top and bottom plates are aluminum. Sorry, I live in America now. They're aluminum, and the sides are steel. The sides are a hardened steel. They're a machinable steel that is then hardened. They bolt to 2 Hardox plates, which I have made. They look like this. The drive bolts to that, and they route into the chassis, so the chassis all holds together as one big piece, which is great. It's going to be super strong, and the drive from Foxic is currently working super well. It's only geared for about 15 miles an hour. I'm normally gearing them a lot higher, but I think that was kind of part of the problem. So I was kind of over ambitious with the drive, so bring it down to this with a massive reduction that they've got, which they've got like a 12-to-1 gearbox on them now. And it's still 15 miles an hour, it's got plenty of torque. So they get bolted into that Hardox frame, little Hardox side plates, that holds all the drive components together. They bolt onto the chassis. You then install all the electronics, and then you bolt in the electric lifter setup from down here. And the other thing that I've done is I've started to make several different front end options. And the first front end option is this bad boy. It's a 15mm thick version of the old head. It is seam welded. It's been a real pain in the ass to make, but it's so strong. It's so strong. And it's also so heavy. But the billet version of Foxic is actually lighter than the Hardox version of Foxic. So I do have a little bit more leeway in weight. Also, I'm still building Foxic for robo games where the weight limit is 100 kilos, so I do have a bit of extra weight. So if I go a bit OCT on certain parts of Foxic, I can just put the lighter head on for robo games, put the heavier head on for other competitions. So we shall see. But I'm waiting for the aluminum and steel parts to arrive, which they should do in a couple of weeks, I would hope. And then it's just a case of transferring stuff from Foxic 3 into Mark IV, and then running the wiring loom in. So that should be good. And the other thing I'm working on is the featherweight Foxic. Featherweight Foxic is 4 brushless hub motors from Skateboards. I'm not the first person to do it, but I think I'm the first person to put them in a combat robot, I think. So Harry Hills did it, and he showed it working. And he did it the day that I ordered my parts. I didn't see his stuff and order it and go, oh, that's a great idea, I'll do that. I saw them, I was like, they're a really good option, let's try it. And the VESC controllers that I was running in Predator and Foxic now run in the featherweight because they're about the right level for it. Currently, it has a big Gimson motor gearbox to do the weapon, and it's not up to it. Absolutely not up to it. So I have swapped. I'm going to swap to a big Banebots 415-to-1 P60 gearbox driven by a brushless motor. I don't have any brushed controllers anymore, so everything has to be brushless. So he's going brushless on the weapon as well as already on the drive. So theoretically, it should be working in about a month's time. So I can't work on Predator until I've got the bits to make the hubs, and I can't work on Foxit because there's nothing left to do, really. It works, it's all together, it flips, it drives, it does everything it's supposed to do. And I'm actually going to go work on the featherweight today because I don't really have anything else to be working on because the Beetleweight and Outweight are currently finished. So yeah, that's it. But that's what I'm up to. That's what we've got to in terms of robot. So the only other thing is Chris is in England and he is building his Beetleweight for Bugglebots in a couple of weeks. He's just done Insomnia with a brand new billet aluminum bodied version of Apex Mark III, and mixed results I think is the best way for that. Brand new robot, too many teething problems. This has been exactly the problem we've had for so long, building robots last minute and thinking they'll work perfectly, and they never do. He was working on that thing right up until about 10 minutes before he had to drive to the event. So bless him for actually making it and getting through safety and doing all the things he was supposed to do. So, and once he's done that, once he's got the Beetleweight done, he's gonna have to do the last couple of bits for big Apex Mark III, because that's going to Colchester, and we're hoping to see him improve on his fourth place in Portsmouth. So we have made some adjustments to the weapon system, so it should spin up faster and should be a little bit more powerful. Still within all of the limits that Extreme Robots are putting in, but it should be better. Also, we've completely upgraded the drive on it. I say we, Chris. I told him what to do and he did it. So bless him, he's becoming a really good little engineer, despite having absolutely no training in engineering whatsoever, but he does work for an engineering company in the admin sales side of things. So he's got good people around him. He's also very inquisitive and he knows what he wants to do. So hopefully that will see Chris and Apex working well in the UK at Bugglebots and at Colchester. So he hasn't really got anything to make, it's just installing things, I think, for both the Beetleweight and heavyweight. Featherweight, we think he's got right now, so we'll see. Other than that, that is everything. That is absolutely everything. That's my 4 bots that I'm working on. Chris has got his 2. Apex Mark IV will eventually turn up, but we'd rather take our time with it and get it right than rush it and get it wrong, like we almost always do. So that's us.